And the main thing that made me want to work with Black people in particular was that I think it was over 50% of beauty products marketed to Black women have cancer causing ingredients. So not only are they not really considering us in like the testing phase or creating these formulations that might not even worry about what our skincare concerns or needs are, they're completely just giving us the things that nobody else wants or no other country will allow or take as far as ingredients go. Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of We're Not Okay, a community of healing. I am one of your hosts, Dr. Antija Allen, and I'm joined by my co-host.
Justin Stewart here.
And we have probably my favorite guest that we've ever had so far on the podcast, my niece, Essence Moore. Welcome, Essence.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here like you had a choice. For those of you who do not know Essence, which you probably should, because she's appeared in several places in the media. You may have seen Essence in Essence magazine multiple times, but she is the owner of Aura by Essence and the CEO of a Lineage Studio salon.
Yeah.
And she has been a licensed esthetician for 10 years now. And so, what I would like to know, even though I know a little bit, it's good for me to know a little bit more and for everybody else to learn a little bit more. Um, some background. So, where did this come from? Tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Okay. I am a licensed esthetician of 10 years. I specialize in corrective skincare and ingredient education. So my role previous to having my own business revolved around going to different businesses and educating any like retail workers on skincare ingredients and product education overall so that they could be better at their jobs. And about 7 years ago, I started my own business with Lineage Skin and Hair Studio in Harlem, New York, where I'm from. The goal in that was to bring affordable, accessible self care to people from my community. So, with my training as an esthetician, I started out working in like downtown Manhattan and like $1 million spas. But the people that I knew, they weren't able to come see me down there on like a consistent basis. So I started my skincare line and opened the studio to offer that access to self care that people wouldn't traditionally have.
And I have to say, as a proud recipient of a facial, I have not had a facial since I had a facial from you because it was the best facial I've ever had in my life. And I feel like anything after this is going to be like a downgrade. So my face is awaiting my next facial from Essence. But what I thought, what made this so special, not just because it was obviously my niece, but what made it so special was the fact that this is actually the first time I ever had a Black esthetician. I've never had a facial from someone who looked like me, quite literally. So that was really exciting. And I felt like there was a better understanding of like my skin and what I needed to do. And there were more tips. And obviously there's going to be more conversation, which is great. It just was a very comfortable experience. So I know you said the focus on making this more accessible for people in the neighborhood of Harlem, which, you know, shout out to Harlem. I always say that. Um, but were there any other motivations for getting into skincare?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, there's not a lot of Black estheticians. We're about 3% of the industry. And because of that, it can be really hard to get jobs. It can also really be hard to kind of fit into these beauty spaces, especially when you're someone like me who's like natural hair and not more into the beauty industry side of like Botox and filler, like medical aesthetics, just in the sense of like offering people that education where they can take care of themselves and they don't have to worry about their products maybe 10, 20 years down the line, causing them cancer or any kind of like hormonal disruptions. So finding a space where you fit in can be really hard as a Black esthetician. So a lot of us just venture out and like open businesses on our own.
When we're looking at the actual data that you provide about the low, I think you said it was about 3%, about 3.1% of representation. I wanted to just highlight an item that was pulled from a report, McKinsey in 2022, and it looked at Black people's experience within the beauty industry, and it's markedly more frustrating than that of non-Black people and filled with multiple friction points. So within that, they mentioned that Black brands make up only about 2.5% of revenue, yet Black consumers are responsible for 11.1% of total beauty spending. Additionally, Black consumers are 3 times more likely to be dissatisfied with non-Black consumers than their options for hair care, skin care, and makeup. And then the last one I'll call out is from entry level to the C-suite and from retailers to beauty houses, only 4 to 5%. Obviously, as you just mentioned, it's lower since this 2022 report, but the percent of all employees in the U.S. beauty industry are Black. And then Black brands in the U.S. in the beauty industry raise a median of 13 million in venture capital. So it's one of those instances where we're not necessarily called upon. So it's like when we have the conversations of you love Black culture, but you don't necessarily cater to Black people. So it's obvious that we we come out in droves. We continuously support, but we don't always get that support reciprocated. So all of that was to ask you the question essence of when we're talking about representation in the industry, as you mentioned, how, if we look at mainstream skincare in that industry, how do you think that that industry approaches the concept of Black skin?
They don't. They treat us like we don't really matter in the space, especially if you're a brand owner. Um, those statistics, they all sound just about right based on my experience. And then the main thing that made me want to work with Black people in particular was that I think it was over 50% of beauty products marketed to Black women have cancer causing ingredients. So not only are they not really considering us in like the testing phase or creating these formulations that might not even worry about what our skincare concerns or needs are, they're completely just giving us the things that nobody else wants or no other country will allow or take as far as ingredients go. Yeah, it's frustrating, but it also leaves room for Black estheticians or Black cosmetic chemists to fill that gap, which I feel like in these last few years we have been trying to do and doing a very good job. There are a lot of popular skincare lines like topicals, Edam, which you can find now in big stores like Sephora. Yeah, but we don't get a lot of the funding.
And as you mentioned, I think as we as a culture do, even if we're given the bare minimum, we turn it into something. We turn it into our own version of quote unquote gumbo.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, just as a person that, like you said, you don't process your hair, you're not heavily baked up with makeup or things like that. Do you believe where we stand today when we're looking at like beauty aesthetics and what was perceived or stereotype of how a woman or a man, however, whoever chooses to do different types of skincare, how we look at skincare now. Do you think that our perception of beauty has changed to where people feel as though it's more of a choice to wear makeup as opposed to as an obligation to wear makeup?
Yes and no. I think it depends on what industry you're in. So for example, when I first started out, I worked at a wax center and it's a franchise. So I would bounce around to different stores and everything is measured with your KPIs. Everything that you do, everything you wear. And on days where we came to work in makeup, our KPIs were higher, our rebooking numbers were higher. Everything as far as how clients wanted to interact with you was higher when you have on makeup and like you're done up. So while I know, like, the numbers are there that people want to see you dolled up, I try to make it a space where when you come into my room, when you're on the treatment table, you don't feel the need. Because every day I have clients come in and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I got a little bit of crust on my face. So like people are always making, I don't want to say excuses, but apologizing for the way that they look. So even if they don't have on makeup or they feel they're not done up enough, it's always something that exists in our mind because it's a historical societal norm. So yeah, it really depends on where you're working and who you're dealing with.
And even pulling more at that strand of when you have your clients, are there, I guess if you think about concerns, because I think, previously in the industry, certain makeup would clog pores and then just damage your skin. And again, it also became mandatory to wear makeup because of what the makeup has done.
Yeah.
Through your expertise, through your experience, and through your clients, if you were to come up with maybe what are your biggest concerns or what are the biggest concerns you've heard if it's specific to skincare, sorry, in the Black community, or maybe even the top concerns that your Black clients have had.
Mhm. So the main concern, hyperpigmentation, discoloration in the skin of any kind. So it could be related to acne scars or eczema, just always some kind of desire to even out the tone, even out the complexion. That would be the number one thing that I treat in most of my clients.
And so I guess connected to that, what do you see as some common myths about Black skincare? So one thing I almost got, I think, physically harmed at my friend's house. I was visiting and her daughter was there, and her daughter is like, she's trying to be a chemist and doing like creating skincare products or something. Yeah, it's like very cool. So she comes into the living room and she asks her mom if she has any sunscreen. And I said, oh, are you going to the beach? And she looked at me like I was insane. And she was like, you don't have to go to the beach to put on sunscreen. And I was like, oh, I thought I did. Why would you just putting it on just to put it on? And she's like, yes, I put it on every day. And I was like, oh, so clearly that is one thing that I know comes up a lot. Black people don't need
Yeah.
sunscreen. So, myths like that or any other myths that you'd like to share with us?
I mean, yeah, that's the number one thing. And it's connected to the main concern that most Black people have with their skin, because that sunscreen is protecting you to basically keep your complexion nice and clear and even. But besides that, I would say the main thing is that like aesthetics is not for us. A lot of the times Black people be like, I don't need to get facials. When I first told my family that I was going to become an esthetician, they were like, oh, who are you going to work on? We don't do that. But it is a space that is for us. And even going to school, our textbooks are literally saying this is not for skin types 4, 5, and 6. And that would be people who are people of color. So yeah, we're literally just like, oh no, it's not something that's for us. But it is. It's an industry that can work for you if you find that pocket where you fit in. But when it comes to certain services, everything is about trends. So people are like right now into injectables. It's not something that I recommend for all people of color, but it varies. It depends on who you're seeing, who your practitioner is. So yeah, I would say those main things. Injectables, uh, things like lasers, where people are in our textbooks telling us that Black people can't do them, but that's not true. And then wearing your sunscreen. Yeah.
And I just want to point out, I did get some sunscreen. Okay. It's
Are you using?
lip bar tinted sunscreen. I have it on right now.
Okay,
I
yeah.
think it's probably done wore off. But yeah, so I got that. Now the rest of it I'll figure out. But that I started small. So um so one thing that came up already that I wanted to kind of circle back to was the makeup conversation. So I found on Instagram a post about a bride who got married with no makeup. And apparently this was a big thing. It was like, oh my gosh, she didn't wear any makeup for her wedding. And her reason for it was she said that she grew up in a very religious home where wearing makeup was not allowed. The other part she said was was not going to spend all that money to have makeup, I guess applied for her wedding. And then there were some people who were like, "Oh, good for you. How brave to not wear makeup." And then there were other people who were like, "Why is it every time somebody doesn't wear makeup, they want to tell you they don't wear makeup? Like, we can tell you don't have makeup on." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." But as I read it, I was like, "Is this really like a big deal? Because I don't wear makeup like really ever, and I did not wear makeup for my wedding. I guess I wore some lip gloss. I don't
Okay.
know if that counts, but that's it." So I was like, I didn't know this was like a big deal. But apparently, for quote unquote beauty standards, like
Mhm.
this is something that you are supposed to do for these big days. And I'm like, you do it or you don't do it. But I didn't know that it was like newsworthy if you didn't.
Oh yeah. Everything is around these societal norms. And I feel like we're in a space where we're shifting and trying to redefine those things and people doing things like that. That's how word gets out that it's acceptable to do your own thing. Because if you don't want to wear makeup, okay. Was it like an article written about her?
Yes, this was in the New York Post.
Oh,
Yes. And again, I think on Instagram, I don't even know if the Instagram one was from the New York Post or the actual news. So, like, that's how big of a deal it was that someone did not wear makeup on their wedding day.
and see, yeah, I think that it's not newspaper worthy, but in putting that out there, it can change some people's perspective. So it could come out working for the best. Yeah. But I don't think it's a big deal. You wearing makeup or not, the main thing is that you accept yourself for who you are. Because a lot of the times people are using the makeup as a shield so that, oh my gosh, they can't see me. They can't see the real me. But if you are comfortable with yourself and you know that you're okay with, bearing your natural self, then it's fine.
One thing that I always think about, and I think this has already kind of come up, was this idea of like, you wearing the makeup to cover up blemishes
Mhm.
or like, whatever they may be. But one thing that I always think about is like, why can't we just focus on our skin itself, right? And that's no shade to anybody who wears makeup, but like that's what I always think about. I'm like, instead of focusing on how we cover up the
Mhm.
issue, why don't we focus on how to treat the issue, letting our skin breathe, finding out like getting facials regularly from people like Essence, like that kind of thing, instead of the focus being on how can I cover this up and maybe making the problem worse.
I think the main thing is most people don't want to, their concern is they don't want to look older than what they are. Like aging is the major thing. And the application of makeup, even with the techniques we see now, everybody is trying to create the illusion that they're younger than what they are. And we have to get more comfortable with the aging process. Even in skincare, people are always coming to me like, oh, well, how can I stop myself from ever looking elderly? And I'm like, you would have to literally pass away. Like that's how, as long as you're alive, like we have to accept our body for what it does for us and what its purpose is. Like, yeah, it's just part of the process. You get older, you can age gracefully, you can take good care of your skin, wearing your sunscreen, focusing on like, taking your supplements or eating well. But at the end of the day, aging is part of the process.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I think when we did our facial, you were saying that you also should do a facial, like not a facial. What do you call like it's like a treatment of the neck. Like the facial is
Yes.
not just the face.
Or taking all of your skincare down to your neck and like your chest, that helps, your aging process. But even things like moles and freckles and things, as we age, that's part of the process.
Yes, I recently did a post, and I gotta shout this out. It has nothing to do with skin, it has to do with hair. I recently did a post about gray hair because I have had gray hair since I was in my, I'd say mid to late 20s. And the post was about how it started off in the back and now it's everywhere. It's everywhere for it to be seen, found, whatever. But what has helped, and I think this goes back to the idea of like seeing people who look like us, right? What has helped was seeing other people like Mara Brock Akil, who is my silver-haired goddess icon inspiration, who wears her gray hair and is just gorgeous. And anytime somebody says something like, "Oh, are you gonna dye it?" I'm like, "No, I can't wait till it's completely gray." I
Yeah.
am looking forward to that day. And she gave me a little like on my photo, my little reel, and she commented it. She said, "Gorgeous." I said, "Oh, I'm validated for the year." Because Mara Brock Akil said I'm gorgeous. So that's the last word I need to hear. I don't need anybody else to give me a compliment after this. But I mean, it was just, for me, it was just something I wanted to talk about because literally you have no idea how many people stop me and go, "Oh, I love your hair." Or they'll go, "So you just gonna let it go gray? You think you'll ever dye it?" Like, and they kind of make that
It's a
face like,
problem. Yeah.
yes, like you're old.
Yeah. Similar to the article with the woman with no makeup at her wedding. Yeah. When you get to
Exactly.
see this representation, it can alter your perspective on yourself, the process of aging, just, yeah, all of the insecurities you might have around your appearance.
As we talk more about that stuff, those things when it comes to skin, I guess I also want to hone in on, I guess you can say, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong, Black people with unique issues for skincare. So
Mhm.
if like for myself, suffer from eczema, had eczema for a long time. I think of keloid skin, those that have hyperpigmentation or even just post-inflammatory hyperimplementation or hyperpigmentation,
Mhm.
apologies. And I think of all of these different things that can also happen as well as like skin trauma from like acne or shaving bumps or things of that nature. And I know some people do treatments like chemical peels or all these different things that we do, that we don't do. We don't eat that oatmeal cream pie because it's going to make our face get really bumpy, or we don't eat that chocolate cake because my skin is going to flare up if I have it.
Mhm.
But speaking to you and actually getting it from someone is a reputable source, someone that is actually within the field, that's in the industry, that's in the business, that has, as the kids say, that couth, or that yeah, we'll just say couth. Essence, if we're looking at like the do's and the don'ts, we won't get into an exhaustive list, but
Mhm.
if you could call out maybe two items on both sides of what are things that people should start doing?
Okay. I would say for a do clean everything that comes in contact with your face every day. That's a simple thing that everybody can do. So things like making sure you're wiping down your phone with maybe a little alcohol pad at the end of your day. If you're washing your face, you're washing your hands, you should be cleaning everything that is coming in contact. A lot of the people that I see who have like acne concerns, blemishes, especially along like the perimeter of the face, I'm like, "Oh, hey, are you changing your pillowcase every week? Are you cleaning your phone?" They're like, no, I should start. And their face starts to clear up. Other than that, I would say another do is don't be afraid to ask for help. Even clients that I've been seeing for years, sometimes they'll be going through like a rough breakout or something, and they'll be like, "Oh, I didn't want to bother you." It's okay to ask a professional, "Hey, what should I do?" Because going a lot of the time to like department stores or retail stores, previously, they used to train people in things like how I used to teach ingredient education, product knowledge. That's not so popular anymore. So a lot of the times your best bet to get like customized skincare routines, somebody who can listen to your concerns, your lifestyle habits and things, and give you recommendations for what might work for you specifically, you got to go to a dermatologist or an esthetician, somebody who's a professional and can sit down with you and go over all those things. Yeah, those would be my two do's.
And I'm glad you do call that out because again, as we're talking about the skincare or beauty standards, everyone's following a certain trend or following a certain way, and I guess it's a good reminder that you are a one of one. What works for you doesn't work for all. And
Mhm.
that's not always something that you should ostracize yourself about, is just kind of tapping into the uniqueness of you and the uniqueness of what your skin may need. So I think I'm glad that you pointed out of getting someone that specifically that can work with what your skin
Mhm.
needs are. So on the flip side of the coin, and I know I was calling out a lot of like dietary things. It may or may not have anything to do with skin. But when we think about what we should stop doing, what are two things that, that may aggravate your skin? I'm hoping that you're not going to say I need to stop eating those pieces of cake. But if you could think of like two things of, hey, these are things that you're doing that maybe you might want to push the brakes on.
Yes. So usually people who have eczema concerns, they'll have like acne and asthma concerns. The easiest thing for them to do to see improvement with their skin is hold off on the dairy and like peanut butter. Peanut butter can agitate any kind of like blemishes and acne concerns. So that would be one don't. And then when it comes to diet, I mean, there's a thing in the skin, a process called glycation that just comes from consuming sugar and it can age the skin faster. So if you're someone who takes in a lot of sugar, you gotta cut back. Yeah. Sugar and like gluten.
Well, folks, you heard it here. I, like many of you, probably put the Reese's cups down. Reese's cups, Reese's Pieces, the peanut butter, red pack, M&Ms. Just don't do as much. It's unfortunate, but as Essence mentioned, it would help when it comes to some of your skincare issues. And thank you for that again. Specific to me as a person that has eczema, who used to have asthma, but not anymore. But thank you for those tips.
You're welcome.
As we continue talking, we want to know more about what are upcoming items that you have. Like what's next? What are you doing now? What's in store? What can people be on the lookout for your brand and what you're continuing to provide to the universe?
So when the pandemic happened and I wasn't able to work, I had to pivot into more influencer work, more virtual work. So I built out my website to basically offer more affordable, accessible self-care options at home. Most of my clients, they are able to shop with me in person and stuff, but virtual services is where I'm kind of like going to next so that I'm able to offer virtual consultations to people all around the world and also connecting with, I'm in partnership with a cosmetic chemist. So I get brandless products and I'll put them on my website. These are dupes for products that might be like $100 in retail stores. And then I'm offering them to my clients for about $40. So the whole concept of offering the affordable, accessible self-care, I'm just trying to take that more on the e-commerce side. And then what else? I'm writing a book, that too.
Can't just graze over that without giving too
What?
much because you're in the process.
Mhm.
What are some things that the book is about? Can't
My
just
book,
say and then leave it.
it is a roundabout way of speaking about the ways in which sisterhood and relationships amongst women do for our self-image. So it's not completely focused on beauty, but it is focused on connection between Black women, how we relate to each other, and how we see ourselves. So yes.
Do you have a timeline in mind? Or again, it's your project. Don't give too much, but we hear about upcoming stuff, we get excited. We want to plug it as much as we can.
I'm hoping for mid 2026.
You heard it here, folks.
I love that. I'm about to cry. I'm like, oh my gosh. What? That is cool. I love that. I love the idea of relationships. I love the idea of what those relationships do for people's self-image and ultimately their confidence,
Yes. Yes.
right? Like my friend the other day, I sent her a picture and she's, oh my gosh, I love your shoulders. They look so great. They're so gorgeous. I'm like, oh, thank you. And she was like, I'm about to work out right now. She was like, I'm lying. I'm not about to work out right now, but you're still an inspiration.
Yes. And speaking of inspiration, when I was 17 for my birthday, I got a facial gifted to me by my aunt. She was the first person to introduce me to the beauty industry, to the fact that an esthetician was a job. I didn't even know that was a thing. And that gave me some guidance later on in my adulthood when I had a job as a flight attendant that I hated. And I was like, what is something that I can look to and be excited about if I was to like go to work? And skincare was it. And so thank you. Thank you for introducing me to this industry.
Oh, see, now you're gonna make me cry again. Not twice in the same episode. We can't do that because we're gonna start releasing the videos, and so I can't be sobbing on here. But I'm glad it all worked out. Even though I don't live close enough, sadly, to get my facial regularly from the Skin Boss, which is how she's known on Instagram. I'm glad that it started from somewhere. That birthday present. Look, trying to be unique. Y'all need to give out unique gifts to these young folks. Don't just take them to a restaurant. Let's do something unique. They might turn into a career or a book.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm excited already. But we have our last question. And you listen to the podcast, so you know what the last question is, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Since more the Skin Boss, what brings you joy?
What brings me joy is being able to make people feel good about themselves. I don't feel like my work is extremely impactful in itself. Like, I'm like, oh, I sit in a room and pop pimples all day. But to know that people look forward to coming to see me, to know that they might be setting aside $10 a week so they're able to get a facial with me at the end of the month. Like, I like that my work can be impactful in that way to build connections with people.
I'm gonna have to say, as one of those relationships and connectors and lifting up the self-image, popping pimples, as that's not just one thing. And why having people walk out and feeling good? Like when I walked out, I was like, oh, I'm glowing. And I think I
Yeah.
told you that before I walked out. I was like, girl, I'm glowing, look at me. And I took about 15,000 selfies after that. I immediately did an Instagram post because that's really what it does, right? So like your work is extremely impactful because I went in there just like, I'm just gonna go in here and get this facial real quick. And when I came out, I was like, oh, I'm gorgeous. Like, you know what I mean? Like you bring up people's confidence. You probably make a lot of people's day. It's almost like when people go to get, a guy goes to the barber or somebody goes to the barber or they go, get their hair done. They might walk in there feeling kind of like, but when they walk out, they're like, oh, like
Yeah.
their confidence has like gone up tremendously. And not just that, but the conversation. I mentioned this before. The conversations people are able to have, regardless of whether you're a therapist or not, it's therapeutic. I'm sure you've had a lot of conversations with people that you could write a book probably on that. The conversations that you have with people that they need somebody to talk to at the same time as having someone pop their pimples.
Yeah.
So yes, you are just doing great, great work, very impactful work. I just had to say that, not just as an aunt.
Thank you.
Um, you're welcome. So that's the end. I can't believe this. I can't believe this. Thank you so very much for taking time out of your very, very busy day, to meet with us and to talk to us and our listeners about, skincare, myths about skincare, what they can do. Last but not least, I want to make sure that we say this on the episode. How can people connect with you? What is the best way to get in touch with you if they want to get one of those customized consultations? Where can they follow you?
You can follow me on every platform. I'm on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. My handle is the Skin Boss, THEE, Skin Boss. And my website I have free education on my blog. A lot of my social media content is based around offering free education as well. So even if you just scroll my page, there's a lot of resources on there. And I also partner with a whole bunch of brands that you might have heard of. They might be new to you, but I offer discounts to those brands through these partnerships. And every once in a while, I do giveaways. My next giveaway will be in November, and it is revolving around the New York mayoral election. So follow me. You'll see information in November about it. And yeah.
That's exciting. I'm glad we asked that
Oh,
because
yeah.
we wouldn't have heard about this November. I need to know more about that after the episode. But thank you again. I'm so very proud of you and all that you have done, all that you've accomplished. It's hard to believe that there was a point in time when she was shorter than me, You can't tell from this video, but she is not anymore. So, and now look, the Skin Boss. So, thank you again. We have just had the pleasure of interviewing Essence Moore, the Skin Boss, licensed esthetician, owner of Aura by Essence, and CEO of the Lineage Salon and Skincare Studio.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.